thanks for tuning in to the Gentleman Badass podcast. My name is Josh Kidney. With me, as always, Mick Doyle.
Hello, hello.
And today we have got a really interesting guest we're going to be talking to, Kurt Podany. Kurt, thank you so much for, is it Kurt or Kirk?
It's Kurt.
Kurt, that's what I thought.
The last name is pronounced Podany.
Podany. Yeah. Kurt Podany.
Kurt
so,
Podany.
Thanks, Kurt, for
What
coming
is your
on.
ethnicity anyway, Podany?
Czech.
Czech.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually pronounced Podany.
Podany?
Czech, yeah. If you're from the country, yeah, you're allowed to say Podany.
Okay. We actually just played Clarkson Czech Fest.
Ooh, how fun.
Earlier this summer. It's one of those gigs we tend to play every year. But
Did you
Czech
eat?
food, I can't think of what it was called. It was like, they had this sandwich. It was like pork and cheese and sauerkraut.
Oh.
It was really good. And
Sauerkraut's on like everything. We
Yeah,
love
pretty much.
sauerkraut. Yeah. Even my kids like eat it out of a can. They love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And,
Sure.
you know, with all of our guests, we kind of like to start from the beginning. You know, what you were like as a kid, growing up, maybe some school stories, funny stories, interesting stories. So, yeah, let's just start there. What were you like back in the day?
I'll tell you, I don't remember it myself. It was my first day in a public school, and all my other brothers and sisters, my nearest sibling, which I have 5, is 5 years older than I am, so he's quite older. But it was my first day of school, and it was public school, and they'd all mostly gone to parochial schools. But at this point in time, my brother and I went to a public school for the first time. That was a big deal in our Catholic house. But they say there was a family of kind of a rough family that lived over the hill from us, and one of the boys was trying to pick on me, I guess, and he was in 5th grade, and I was just there. It was like, kindergarten, and I socked him, and I bloodied him. So it was my first day of school, and I already got in a fight in the first day. Yeah. That's why you knew I was supposed to be a full contact
The legend
fighter.
was born.
That is my family's favorite story. They love to say.
Nowadays, that'll get you expelled. You might not even get go back to
They-
school.
I'd have been a problem child.
So how much trouble did you get in? Did you?
I don't
remember.
No, I know I think because of the huge age difference, that's why the guy didn't hit me back or push me. And he was just kind of verbally harassing me about supposedly just being in school or being a crybaby or something. I spun around and he was messing me on the wrong day.
A day that ended in Y.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I don't know if you'd call that young aggression, but got into martial arts. What got you into martial arts?
Got me into martial arts was, first off, I was picked on a lot. Being the youngest of 5 and being so far in ages, and they didn't want me around at all, hanging around them. And then there were like no kids around me. I had one neighbor kid, so him and I would hang out. Our idea of football would be like, I throw the football to you and you got to get past me, Baseball was I pitch it to you and you got to try and get to the base. That was our rules, It was very physical. I learned I wasn't scared. And when my brother would personally beat me on a daily basis, and he was so much older and bigger than I was, when I would get into fights with kids my own age and size, they'd hit me, I'd be like, are you kidding? That's all you got? This is nothing. So he always says he was part of my success in martial arts, is my brother, who really is a passive guy. He's actually never been in a street fight in his whole life. I'm the only person he's ever hit. So
Yeah, he took it all out on you. There's no left, probably.
Then I started hanging around, and a lot of fights in high school, and my buddies weren't guys that would jump in and help. I mean, I didn't really feel I had. A couple times strangers had my back. Yeah. So I got in quite a few fights at the parties and the kegers and things like that, and fights in the schools, and no one was helping me. At the same time, my sister was dating a guy that was a Vietnam vet, and he trained an Army Ranger. And he saw how bad I was getting picked on, so he would show me different things. And he even snuck me into Bruce Lee movies at drive-ins. And so I was fascinated that people could fight with their feet. I was blown away, And I decided shortly thereafter, it was in my junior year in high school, I met a guy who his brother-in-law had moved up from Oklahoma and was a black belt and was training out of his garage. And so I started training with him.
What type of martial art?
It was Tang Soo Do, basically. It was like Taekwondo, but
Is this
we always
Steve Welch?
boxed. Yeah, Steve Welch.
Steve Welch, yeah.
But we always boxed. We're a lot of traditional Taekwondos and Tang Soo Do schools. It really controlled striking to the head or no striking to the head whatsoever. But yeah, we were always boxing.
Okay. Yeah. So from there, how long did you train till you started competing?
Karate competing, only about 3 years of training, 2 or 3 years of training. But full contact fighting, it wasn't until I met this gentleman sitting over here next to me that says, when we first met, that's a funny story too. But when we first met, it was we kind of introduced ourselves and talk. And I had just got done training. He kind of came in late and he goes, "So what do you want to do?" And I go, "Spar." We stuck on the gear and I couldn't hit him with my fists. I could kick at him and get him some feet, but I could not touch this man. And I was fascinated by it. And he's like, "Man, you got to do kickboxing, Kurt." And I've always wanted to. So that was the next thing, was kickboxing. We did above the waist. We did low kick kickboxing. Then we got into bare knuckle karate. Then we got into Muay Thai.
This is a time where there really wasn't much full contact. Like I came from Ireland in my head thinking a move to America, it'd be great for fighting. And then I get here and it's crickets, nothing until I met him. And actually you brought up Steve Welch.
Yeah.
Kurt kept telling me like, man, kind of don't judge Omaha, but like Oklahoma, where these guys are from, that's where like it's really going on down there. He's like, there's these people down there, Chuck Norris and Jim Buten, and he names all these names, and I was like, yeah, kind of rings a bell, But then I think the first time we went down to Oklahoma to a karate tournament where guys are trying to fucking kill each other. And I was like,
on a concrete floor.
Yeah,
on a concrete floor.
This is what real karate is supposed to be
Straight
like.
out of Bloodsport.
No, totally it was.
Oh, there were people getting fucked up left and right.
Bad. I mean, I think
there was injuries.
The first time we went down there, was it the Nationals you took me down to or something like that?
Yeah, it was always the Nationals we'd go down to.
Yeah, and I was just like, son of a bitch. And then a lot of those guys that were winning in the Oklahoma, Texas circuit became the world champion kickboxers, the Benny the Jets, the Bill Wallaces, the Chuck Norris, all of these guys.
Billy Blanks was there too.
Yeah, Billy Blanks. All these guys were kind of blooding themselves, quite literally, on the Oklahoma, Texas
circuit.
Circuit.
Kansas some too, but it was the central southern plains. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So really, maybe California is responsible for the popularity of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and kind of the wave of champions all kind of came from California. In kickboxing, especially full contact, that initial wave of the best fighters were all coming out of the Midwest, especially that, what do they call it, Tornado Alley. There was so many good
great fighters, and a lot of the guys I used to compete with and stuff, I started looking later in life, and I would always watch action movies, but as stuntman and stuff, and I'd see that, I'd be like, oh yeah, man, I used to spar that guy.
So that's kind of, it was definitely the mecca of full contact fighting, but they weren't advertising it as full contact fighting. You just assumed that if you were fighting at a karate tournament in Oklahoma City,
and you were brown and black belt,
it was going to be a full contact fight. I mean, you could grab a guy and literally pull him across the floor, punching him. Yep. I mean, it was, and this is like long before the UFC or anything like that. You could sweep back then
sweep
too.
and dump, but like I said, on concrete floor. Sometimes gymnasium, but the specific ones at the Nationals that we always went to, it was concrete
pads,
floor.
Yeah.
Wow.
No mats or pads.
And so you got into competing in that?
Yep.
Or,
he was doing it.
That's what I was
His
doing.
coach, Steve Welch, who he introduced me to, were they were doing that stuff. And I was like, dude, you got to stick gloves on and learn kickboxing. Like, you're already fucking hammering each other anyway.
Well, some of those tournaments got to where you'd have the karate tournaments all day, and then that night they would have kickboxing fights in a ring and stuff. It was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of those guys were doing both.
Yeah.
They would do
Karate that day,
karate that day,
kickboxing that
and
night.
then they would kickbox that night too.
Okay.
Different times.
That's why I introduced you to David Thunder Cummings and
Yeah.
stuff. That's where you met him also.
Conan from Oklahoma. He's another guy who turned out
Great
like
guy.
a 2 or 3 time world kickboxing champion.
He turned into a great bowler. Did you know that?
What?
Yeah, became a professional bowler. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Went on the bowling circuit after karate and
I
did
saw
awesome.
him. I saw him one year at the not LFA. Before it was LFA, RFA at these MMA fights down in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I tried to talk to him. I was going to say, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I met you back, and I dropped Jim Buten's name. His brain was not good.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Too many punches.
Something
happens.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay,
right.
well,
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a nice day.
He was a warrior, man.
Yeah.
Going in.
Yeah.
So you said, and maybe we got the story already. So it was a funny story when you met Mick.
Well, the karate tournaments up in the Nebraska area, where we will call them watered down, if you will, just as far as the contact and the rules and how the judging was done. I mean, if you were a brown and black belt and you hit somebody too hard, they would disqualify you. You know what I mean, it was just like, so I didn't go to these things, usually in the Nebraska. And the gym I was training, because I just moved up from Oklahoma to marry my high school sweetheart who left me 2 months later. But anyway, I moved back up to Omaha after I'd lived in Oklahoma for 3.5 years and was training at this gym. And the owners of it came back and went to this tournament and said they met this guy from Ireland. They were like, Kurt, you got to meet him. He says, this guy was just quick and he had movement. He moves around a lot like you do. He's really aggressive. You two guys just got to meet each other. So they arranged it, actually. They told Mick where I was.
Greg Adams.
Stuff. Yeah, Greg Adams, right. And I waited for that night, like I said, and then in he walks, and Irish guy could barely understand him. Is it a brogue? Is that right to call it a brogue?
My accent was thick
Oh,
back then.
man. It was heavy, But he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, let's spar. And that's how it was. It was like 2 guys in a gym. We got in and did our art together first, and then afterwards we became really good friends.
Okay.
And then it became, what are we going to do? We've got this town where all it is mostly focused on a lineage of Kim's karate, Shin's karate, and a Dale Craig. And Robert Bussey also kind of had a lineage going. But that was it, really. And no one was doing what we were doing or what we wanted to do. It was kickboxing, full contact. And, we started a small gym in Benson. The first kids that we got, those kids came to us not because they wanted to learn to fight. They needed to learn to fight. And that's the truth.
Yeah. It was, and we've had 2 of them on the podcast. Chris Brightmore, Rob Wiley. Yeah, there's been a bunch.
Yeah. Yep.
It was a kind of a very cool proving ground. And I think probably part of the reason that they got good is that we were young too. We were competing. We were pushing ourselves. So there was just a level that you were just expected to kind of meet because we were doing it too.
Yep.
But there really wasn't much full contact going on. Like if we wanted to fight, we were driving 10 hours to Denver or 12 to Fort Collins,
paying $30 to fight
to go compete for some promoter who was actually making money on ticket sales, and then we would drive back because there was no like per diem or hotels or anything like that. So it
was a labor of love right there.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly when it became legal, but MMA was illegal for a long time, where you can only do it on like the casino, Indian casinos, stuff like that. Was this just considered different because there wasn't grappling?
When it first started, it came out, it wasn't MMA.
Okay.
It was followed with the Greek. It was Vale Tudo.
Okay.
And a lot of times on some of the shows that we would perform at, there was usually like a round or two, a fight or two of it. Usually at a professional level for the most part. Rules are a little different in the Vale Tudo. No elbows. You can use your forearm, but no elbows. No like fish hooking stuff, small tissue. But it was vicious on the ground. Headbutting was allowed.
Even in Oklahoma, the point terms, you could kick the groin.
Yeah, you could hit the groin. Correct. Yeah, punch and kick the groin.
Yeesh.
So it was way different. Yeah. And so it was, and then we got to watch an MMA evolve from the Ultimate Fighting Challenge, which, of course, if anybody doesn't know the history of that, it started in these black belt magazines that were out, where the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would challenge anybody in the world or whatever to come down there and use their art and fight one of them guys to beat their art. And I forgot what the cash was you could win. I don't know.
It wasn't much.
Yeah, it wasn't much, but the whole...
Before that, before kind of right as MMA was starting, we were calling it No Holds Barred, Pancration, Vale Tudo, whatever, was probably the bare knuckle, Kyokushin, knockdown tournaments. Those were the closest things to a human cockfight, I guess, if you want to call it that. But there was still honor, there was tradition, there was like even in a lot of the bare knuckle tournaments we did, like remember Tamashiwara, Test of Spirit, you had to break a board before you. So they'd call your name, you'd step up on the mat, and you'd break a board or a couple boards. If you didn't break it, you didn't fight. So your opponent was standing there waiting on you to break, because he broke his. And if you didn't do it, and like we were at like big fights where guys' nerves or I don't know what got the better of them,
couldn't break the board,
and they couldn't break the board, or brick or whatever it was. So you would do this head game before you even started, and that was gaining national attention. It was on TV, and then like MMA comes up, that kind of disappeared. Because I think the biggest fights at the time were on TV, the Coors Light Fight Nights from Colorado.
Which was backed by Chuck Norris.
Yeah. And then the Shidokan, Sabaki and the Shidokan both had national TV deals, right?
Yep.
And then MMA comes along,
ESPN.
and then boom, they're gone. Because it's like, the Shidokan and Sabaki and all that stuff were here. And then MMA were like, well, you know what? We're going to allow wrestling and everything else and all different styles. And so this kind of went away. Kind of right as it was starting to really get popular too.
One of the things I miss about those days and those tournaments was the difference. You'd get a kung fu guy against, a karate guy or somebody, very traditional, a Shidokan guy. It'd go on back and forth. It was neat to see the different styles and systems of people's abilities against each other. And sometimes there were weight classes, sometimes there weren't.
Yeah.
It was cool. It's neat to see. And even in those karate tournaments too, when there were weight classes, then they would have a grand championship where the 3 weight classes, the light, middle, and heavy, would all fight each other for the single-hand trophy at the end. Okay. It's traditions and things like that you just don't see anymore, I mean, it was...
Plus, we were also fighting in a day where there was no video.
Yeah.
So you couldn't scout a guy out.
True.
So, like, if you knew, hey, Kurt, you're fighting this kung fu guy, you had an idea in your head, I'm fighting some Jackie Chan motherfucker.
Right.
But that's all I know about him. I don't know if he's left-handed, right-handed. I don't know how tall he is, what weight he is. I don't have any film to watch. Does he have habits? So it was a lot. I agree with him. It was kind of pure back then.
It was.
Like that style versus style. Like you literally went in there with no data on the guy. You fucking rolled the dice,
And 9 out of 10 times we were out drinking beers with the guy and having a blast afterwards,
But that still happens. At the highest level, that still happens. It's the local scenes where it's still kind of territorial and all that stuff.
Animosity,
Yeah, but I think, like, the top pros, it's just a fucking job to them, most of it, So,
you're a showman when you're out there.
That's especially now. There is an onus on them to become showmen.
You're right. Sell the fight.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm sure he feels the same way as a pure martial artist to watch these TV clowns.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So, road to the world championship or world champion. What did that look like? Was it a big goal for you? Was it just something kind of you stumbled into? How did that come about?
Well, that was mostly Mick's job. That's what he did. He has ability to search out connections back then with, there was no YouTube and internet and things like that. It was making phone calls. Yeah, he was on the phone, right. He was on the phone. And just calling people. And he would get to the right people, find the right connections, and then people you're calling. And he mostly got me in the mind. He was like, Kurt, we got to be 2 weeks without a fight all the time. So we were. And if a phone rang, and it was correct, we would take upon the opportunity. A lot of it wasn't so like long goal term. My long-term goal was to beat the person in front of me. That's really what I wanted to do. If didn't matter who it was, what it was. If Mick got it lined up, I was fine. I want to fight this guy, and I just wanted to make sure I dominated. And even if I got my hand held up because I won on the cards, I was disgraced inside myself. Because to me, if I didn't give him a standing 8 or put him on the ground or win by a knockout or a TKO, I wasn't doing my job as a martial artist. And with that mindset, that puts you right in a world title fight right there. He just had to line me up with the right people, and we did. I fought a lot of hard fights, good fights. Sometimes it was, I tried to get him over with quick, and I'd be going like, Mick, that guy was easy, or who was that guy? He goes, Kurt, you didn't even give the guy a chance. So it was.
But that's a lot better way to do it.
Oh yeah.
The 5-round, 10-round wars, like every fighter wants to avoid those things because they creep up on you 10 years later. But yeah, I called a lot of fucking guys.
Yeah.
But in fairness, this is probably where I'll toot our horn a little bit. We were some pretty bad dudes out of the Midwest. Like everybody knew who we were. So when I'd call someone in New York, and I'm like, hey, listen, and they're like, oh yeah, we know about you guys. And I was like, can we get on the show? And later on, and then they'd start to pay for you to go there and stuff like that. But
it was definitely earned, It wasn't just because of a friendly face or, hey, do me a favor. Right. We earned it. We were hard fighters. We were rough fighters.
Now, was this Muay Thai, kickboxing, all of the above,
everything.
whatever?
Everything. Sometimes low kick fights. Yeah, there's like, there was Kwame Stevens. All right.
I think he avoided me how many times?
Yeah, but when you fought him, it was a Muay Thai fight.
Yes.
And this guy is good. Like he's very, very good. But
Kwame, if you're out there, you're a very good fighter.
Yeah, we tried to get him into a kickboxing fight, and he wouldn't do it because of Kurt's range. Then I said, well, how about we do international rules, which at the time was with low kicks, so there was no clinch work, no knees, no elbows. But you could kick the legs. And this was sometimes in different states, they had rules about contact. Some states you couldn't do Muay Thai. So to get around it, they would do modified rules or international rules, which is where you could kick the legs. So I tried to get Kwame to fight in that, and he wouldn't do it. Then, in his mind, he thought, well, if I can go into clinch, then that will negate Kurt's reach. So that was how we agreed, because he was like one of the best guys out there at the time. He wanted to fight the best guys. So we would like agree, because most of the top guys were doing what we were doing. Sometimes they were fighting Muay Thai, sometimes they were fighting low kick, just whatever the best opportunity was, or money or whatever. So he agreed to a Muay Thai fight, but it wasn't originally what the plan was. We were going to do, he picked Muay Thai because he thought he might have some tactical advantage there. He just underestimated Kurt's clinch game too. But
I destroyed him. It was a great fight. I mean,
so then Kwame was before Thailand, right?
Yeah.
So if I have this right,
no, sorry, that was after. That was 98. We went to Thailand in 96.
Then who was the guy that you fought? Do you remember who you fought right before we went to Thailand? Because it was a similar situation. If I remember this right, all of a sudden Kurt appears on the map now. Oh shit, this guy can do Muay Thai too. And because you hadn't, I don't know, you didn't have that many Muay Thai fights before we went to Thailand, right?
No, nope.
So basically he beat somebody who maybe people thought that he shouldn't have been able to beat. And then I'm like, hey, look, I know the guy doesn't have a lot of Muay Thai fights, but I say we bring him to Thailand because he's, he'll shock people.
Oh, that's what I spent. I just went up to when that went to getting invited to Thailand was when I went. I was getting ready for the fight. I think we had a fight coming up on a September Fest card or something, and it was early summer. And in the job I was doing construction, I got sent up to Minneapolis, and that's where I met Greg Nelson.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a place to train, and I found him and trained. And then you two introduced you to him, and then next thing I know, we got introduced and got invited to go to Thailand. That was huge.
Talking about Thailand, if I remember right, weren't you the first American to win a Muay Thai fight in Thailand?
Yeah, it was the first year. Well, when you say that, no, not that, but it was the first year. This is called the Prince Cup.
Okay.
King's Cup.
No,
Princess
it was the
Cup
Prince.
at the time, yeah.
Not Princess, the Prince.
Prince
Cup. Yeah. It was the Prince Cup. It was basically a world, back then it had been your world amateur tournament. And what that meant by amateur meant you can be a professional fighter, but unless you have fought in their stadiums, Rajan Dahmer and the Lumpini, Channel 7, you're not considered a pro Muay Thai fighter. They don't care if you made money doing whatever, but if you haven't fought in their stadium. So with that being said, you got, you can call it an amateur division. We did have some more protective gear on there, but it was a 5-day tournament, and you fought every day. You weighed in the morning, you fought that day, and went to bed, and you got up the next morning.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the first year we were invited. This tournament is, 1,000 years old, whatever. And it was the first year that we were invited. And we were a team of 5. And we took third.
Yeah, and we weren't even a dark horse.
Yeah.
People were like, silly Americans.
Because Americans.
Nobody had gone there and done it. But we had good fighters.
We did. Good team.
And adapted. But yeah, freaking.
I won the gold. Mick won a bronze. James Cook won a silver, I believe.
No, I think he got a bronze.
Bronze
you were
also.
the only one that
got the gold.
got a gold.
Okay.
But it was.
And I wasn't supposed to fight. But we had a guy from New York who had a felony who didn't show.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Greg Nelson and I were supposed to be coaching.
And you
And
stepped up and fought.
yeah, and we're like, well, we need 5 for a team. No, 4, because it was Adam, James, you.
And me,
Yeah, we needed 4 for a team. Greg was the 5th, the coach.
the coach.
And yeah, like in the parade of fighters, all these teams would be on the back of pickups and trailers,
Buses
and
and
then
stuff.
there's 4 of us in the back of a pickup. Like our team was big enough that we could actually just be in one pickup by ourselves. And so I actually wasn't supposed to fight, but there's no real, like you said, there's no real discrimination over there between amateur and pro. Sometimes you got paid, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And it's the same way in other countries. I mean, I had a lot of fights. The guy fought from Uzbekistan had a lot of fights, like in the hundreds. Like it wasn't like an amateur tournament would be now, where you may fight that's someone that's got 12 fights, or Now they actually have A, B, C class now.
Correct. By a number of fights. But that wasn't that way back then.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. Didn't really look at your records.
So kind of taking a step back then, transitioning to Muay Thai, was that just, I'm interested to see, kind of going from I can't remember the specific, the Taekwondo type martial arts to where you can throw elbows, knees, kick the legs. Was that like a gold mine for you?
Exciting. Yes, very. I was like a kid in a candy store. I've always, as long and tall as I am, I've always been a decent long-range fighter. I'm a blitzer. I'm always blitzing. I'm a really good long-range fighter. And when I got introduced to doing Muay Thai, the grabbing and the elbows, that's where everybody wanted to beat me, was in close. So I really focused my studies on the weakest part that I would have, is my inside fighting. And then as more that I played with it, and the more I did it, and the more I competed against it, I found that the outside footwork with Western boxing movement and the quick foot-to-foot Taekwondo and karate style movement of inside and explosiveness mixed with the power and the middle distance fighting of Muay Thai. When Muay Thai at middle distance and in close, it's devastating, extremely devastating. But outside, if you move and have movement and use angles, it can be effective against these guys who are extremely traditional Muay Thais. And that's how I found I would win. I would combine the two arts together. Outside, I'm sticking and moving. I'm trying to look like Mayweather out there. When I get in close, it was to hold your ground, go forward, take your opponent out, control them, their skull or their body, and end the fight.
That's why the Dutch fighters were successful against the Thais in the beginning, is because they were Western boxers, like Kurt said. And they were, they were dropping Thai fighters with liver punches. Yet Thai boxers were getting kneed to the body. Like, it didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But because these punches were coming at a different angle with different footwork, like you said, or different kind of setups, they just weren't used to them. And so these Dutch fighters, who actually, even before they were fighters, the original Dutch guys were merchant marines who would go to these fights and go, I'll fucking do that.
Right.
And they'd be like, okay, we got a foreigner, we got a Falang to come in here and let's fight. And all of a sudden these guys had hands and footwork, and these Thais like, whoa, wait a minute. So, I mean, he's right. It's, you know, styles make fights too. So if you watch a lot of the best Thai fighters now, a lot of those same guys are actually pro boxing too, because they have the footwork, they have the hands, and they can make sometimes a lot more money doing, you know, Western professional boxing than they can sometimes in the stadiums. Okay. So, yeah, it's, but I think too, stylistically, when you train up here for the worst case scenario, and this is not to dog like Western kickboxing, but if you study Muay Thai the way we were doing it, where we're adding in the boxing and the footwork and all that, it's a little bit of a step down to do kickboxing. It's like, oh wait, we don't have to worry about clinching?
Right. Yeah.
Don't have to worry about knees and elbows? Oh,
this is gonna be easy.
yeah, this is great. You know, so, you know, it'd be like doing jiu-jitsu where there, you know, someone goes, okay, you can't leg lock. And if you're a leg locker, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you just totally changed my game, you know? So you take away that stuff, it makes things difficult for the people who haven't trained to be able to do everything up here. Take away a skill or whatever, or a set of rules. That's all right.
The example is from Muay Thai to what they call the glory style rules now. You know, it's like, oh, short clinch, no elbows. Oh, all right. You know, I mean, it's less danger effect, but when it comes to a full-fledged Muay Thai fight, there's just nothing more vicious to me. I mean, I'm just a huge fan of it, and I know MMA is great and everything. It is such a triathlon of the martial arts, MMA. So I'm not knocking it at all, but I have such a passion for Muay Thai. I just the knockouts, the action, the power, the ceremonial rituals,
the tradition,
the tradition.
You know,
is
as a
culture is
purist
awesome.
martial artist, and I don't think, to be fair, either of us really understood the tradition until we went to Thailand. And we went during Songkran, which is the New Year. And we like dove head on into that part of the culture. In fact, we even made the newspaper because these other teams were locking themselves away in hotels and, you know, super serious about the fight. We're just fucking happy to be in Thailand.
We're like, oh my God. We were our diet and stuff. We were out partying and drinking a lot, but we still had a.
But, you know, we like immersed ourselves in the
culture.
In the culture,
it was fabulous.
You know, and so, you got a fighting art that's 2,000 years old and is still effective. Most martial arts don't have that kind of longevity. You know, most traditional Asian martial arts were designed for short, stocky men fighting short, stocky men. So when it came to the West, it didn't work anymore unless that other person was bound by the same type of rules you were. Then it might look like a fight, but, you know, there's just not that many martial arts around that are really relatively unchanged. You know, other than for Muay Thai adding boxing gloves in the 20s, in the 1920s, that was it. But
I just want to add to that, when we first started, that women were not allowed into the ring. I mean, not even to like hand over gifts or be ring girls or hold up cards. They were not allowed in the ring. So it's real cool, and especially when we would go to these full contact fights and it would be a girls' fight, it'd be like, oh boy, here we go. But now the women have evolved so much, and it's so cool to see them in there. And my gosh, their technique, a lot of them is better than what you see the men are doing. I mean, it's just fabulous, and it's a great thing to have watched since the 90s. Go girls.
What was it? Jackass. They had Ryan Dunn, when he was still alive, get in the ring and try to fight a female Muay Thai fighter, and she messed him up, man. It was awesome to watch. But so when did jiu-jitsu come into the picture?
Jiu-jitsu, that was mixed thing, man. When we had a gym
He
together.
was like,
Never got-
I want to
okay.
kick people and punch them in the
I
skull.
gotcha. Okay.
Nah, he really didn't. I mean, I guess you did a
I
little
did
bit
some,
down
sure I
in
did.
Benson and stuff like that.
Mostly
I mean,
for the weapons defense.
Yeah.
But when we first started, though, sure, I did jiu-jitsu too. We did the Ultimate Fighting Challenge in Ultimate Kazakhstan in 1998. There's a story to tell. But when we went there, the rules, we didn't really know what we were doing, but it was their version of MMA. Like, what do you want to do? We went, okay, ground fighting stuff. So we did innovate. We touched the bases. It's funny, Mick and I are UFC veterans, and no one knows that.
So this event was the first time the original owners of the UFC, before the Fertitas, were experimenting with, would this thing be global? And so they contracted with a group of Russian mobsters, essentially.
No names given.
And they put on this, I mean, they called it UFC Almaty, I think. or
Yeah,
something like that.
I still have the shirt. The guy
Yeah.
holding up the world, the old,
Yeah.
but it says Ultimate Kazakhstan on it.
And so it was their first experiment with how will this thing go in a world audience. But there's so many cool stories about that trip. But do you remember the ring?
Yeah.
The octagon. The night before,
Oh, God.
they show us where we're going to fight, this stadium.
Yeah.
And it's a big place. Like, I mean, probably the equivalent would be about the size of the old Civic Auditorium, maybe.
Oh,
or
I
something
think it was
like
bigger than that.
Was
There's
it?
several thousand. There was 15,000 people in there.
So in this thing is this octagon, and it fucking looks homemade. The padding was carpet wrapped around the post,
It was
right?
galvanized fencing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There wasn't rubber or anything
No.
on it. It was
And
galvanized
so
fencing.
we're looking at this thing going, well, this is some fucking ghetto shit.
Right.
Titus.
And our buddy McTierney gets in the cage. Now, he's a WWE wrestler at the time, or WWF, whatever. So he gets in there. He's a big dude, and he's bouncing around. And I'm like, man, that fucking thing sounds like it's going to collapse. Well, he runs back and kind of leans back against the cage, just like stretching. And he hits this thing, and one by one, these panels start falling out onto the floor of the stadium the night before the event, before it's going to be televised live all over Russia. It's like a domino thing, like boom, boom, boom. And we're like, what the fuck are we getting into here?
Carpet taped on the poles.
They had guys in there, welders, welding that thing through the night.
Wow.
Basically to make it ready for this huge show that they had the next actually it was two nights of fights, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Two
think
nights fight.
one of us fought on one night and then the other one the next. Oleg Taktarov was the main event against Mick Tierney, and then he fought Moti,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Moti Hornstein.
Oh.
Yeah, it was wild, man.
We met a lot of people, shook hands, and had our pictures taken with people we had no idea who they were. But they were famous in Russia.
They were famous in Russia.
Famous in Russia.
There were some serious gangsters there.
When the first night we get there, we won't go into the visa thing, but we
Oh no, I think we
you
should.
want to shed?
Actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
We didn't have visas. Okay.
We flew out of the United States into Kazakhstan with no visas.
And I'm looking at these guys going, I have an Irish passport. I'm okay.
Yeah.
You fuckers.
Oh, you're
like,
fucked.
do you know where we're going? Like, this is some
So-
shady...
And Mick
like,
Tierney, this huge guy, he's in shorts and no shirt, right? We land in Russia in Ultimate Kazakhstan, and it's winter. And the tarmac is not connected to the actual airport building. You walk down onto the tarmac, and it's quite a distance of being outside. Well, so we're thinking everything's normal, but we all grab our stuff, our gear out of the overhead compartment. We're walking down the steps, and we're all going, oh my God, we weren't ready for how cold it was. No one was dressed for it. We get to the bottom of the steps, and there are soldiers. I mean, soldiers with guns, not pointed at us, but they're soldiers. We were not allowed to go into the airport. We had to stand at the tarmac in freezing cold temperatures. Like, we were shivering. It must have been, I don't know,
It was fucking cold.
20 minutes or so, maybe a little less than that, but we were all freezing until these limos pull up. And these limos pull up, and they start talking to, I'm guessing, whoever's in charge of the guards, and they're talking, and still time's going by, and we are just shivering. And no longer, it's not funny anymore. The humor had left the building. And we're wondering what the hell's going to happen. And then they allow us to go into the airport. And as soon as we walk in, there's reporters and tons of people, and everybody's speaking Russian, so we have no idea what's being said, but we had to shake a lot of hands. And one by one, they took us upstairs into their security and did their little interview, and we received our passports there at the tarmac. Then we get back into the limos, and they drive us to this casino. We go into this upper level of the casino where there's a bunch of people. I want to say a bunch, but there's 20 people, maybe 30 people, and they're eating. It's not a huge restaurant, but they're eating. And these men in their long coats and fancy suits walked down and each table, and everybody in the tables got up, and they all had to leave. Matter if they were done eating or not, they all left because they set out a banquet for us, the U.S. team.
Wow.
And those guys were the mob.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
They gave us money to go down.
Visas. The mob shows up at the airport. It's okay. You don't need visas. I'm just like, this is some fucked up shit right here.
We were paid in cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got gifts. We got this mob boss kind of comes into this dinner, and he's like, you know, through his interpreter, he's like, welcome to my country, because he probably owns it, you know.
Yeah. This was his
And
family
like,
vodka and stuff.
Yeah, this is a vodka made specially for me and the president only. You know, gave us that stuff.
And gave us a bottle of it each and stuff.
It was wild.
It's cool.
Crazy.
So that was the UFC's. It's a little known bit of history about the UFC is that their first experiment was kind of under the radar, under very kind of
Shady
circumstances. Yeah, you know, partnering with the Kazakh Russian mob to do a show there, and they packed the place both nights.
Oh yeah.
And it was like a variety show too. Like they had like singing acts and all kinds of stuff. Like they were experimenting with everything. Like, could they make this like a production spectacle? It was wild, man.
So when we got introduced, we all had to have cowboy hats on and walked out behind a guy with a horse.
Yeah, right.
Barefoot too.
Yeah,
and I'm like, man, this thing better not poop.
It was wild, man.
It was.
But you know, that's why you train a lot of fighters now, and you come across and you hear these young kids whining about this or that. Thinking, Shut the fuck up,
right?
You don't even know how good you guys have it. You're an amateur fighter, and you made more money last week than I made in my entire career. Like, shut up. You know, you didn't get held at gunpoint in Kazakhstan ever.
Right.
Like, you have it pretty fucking easy, kid, you know.
They almost didn't let us fly home. We'd all had a little bit too much to drink the night before we were sent home. They had a party for us, and we all kind of took advantage of it. Well, the one gal with this female fighter, she tried to ride through the X-ray machine at the airport, and we were all we got on the plane. We had to swear that we were going to behave because they were this close to kicking us off that flight. Yeah, it's like no, I want to go home. Please, I want to go home.
Remember how everybody smoked on the plane too back then?
Oh God, I stunk for days after that.
You know, when you
couldn't
fly
wash it
over
out.
there, like smoking was
Lufthansa.
on the plane. I mean, that's
Those herbal cigarettes too. It was.
like everything just fucking reeked.
Yes.
And everywhere we went there, we had to have armed bodyguards.
Yeah.
And it was because of the gambling. It wasn't really that we might get.
I thought because of the security of it being.
No, it was the gambling is what I found out. Because remember, Gene was the guy's name from New York, the guy that was kind of the interpreter kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He told me that there's so much money that gets gambled that they were worried that rival families, whatever, might
kidnap
one of us in a bathroom and say, how much you getting paid? Now, you know, this is a time where $1,000 for a fight was like magnificent money back then.
Yep.
And for them, they're betting hundreds of thousands on these fights. So for them to say, hey, look, tell you what, you know, land this in the first round or, you know, whatever, and somebody's betting on that stuff. And that's what he was saying, is that's why we had guards around us all the time, is so that nobody could get to us to try and influence fights, because there's they want to stick one over.
I had
on
no
this
idea it was to
family.
protect us.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too because all of our security guards look like fucking Ivan Drago from Rocky.
Yeah. We would make them show them the guns though. We're like, no,
they'd
Joe,
open
it's
up
good,
their
Joe, it's good,
waistcoat,
Joe.
like, let me see that gun. And
Uzis.
Yeah.
They were Uzis.
Fucking
on this
Uzis
side.
strapped underneath
Yeah.
them. I mean, these guys look like, imagine like Al Capone type gangsters from like the
Very much
the St.
so.
Valentine's Massacre kind of stuff.
Very stereotype.
They look like that. They dress like that. It's like they'd seen all these American movies about gangsters and thought that's what they're gonna dress like. It was bizarre, man.
It was
funny.
bizarre.
Awesome.
Bizarre.
Too bad there weren't video cameras back there.
Oh, I know.
I don't know.
Looking at- yeah.
Maybe some of the things we wouldn't want on video cameras.
Yeah.
Well, that could have been edited out, but the memories. But
Yeah.
So that was kind of fights in the ring, if you will, and it seems like there's been a good amount of kind of fights, not necessarily with your fists, but outside of the ring, some pretty serious injuries and whatnot. Didn't you hurt your neck pretty bad? Was that?
Oh yeah, every time it seems like I take a step forward, I go 2 steps back. That was the world title fight. That would have been IKF world title fight in '98. I believe that was in June or July or something like that in the summer. But yeah, I won the fight. Everything was great, and I was sitting in my truck in a stoplight in Fremont, and a kid didn't even touch his brake. He was doing about 25 when he hit me. I didn't even hear brakes. He just rear-ended me. I don't know what he was doing, but it threw my neck way out of whack. For about a year, I was just in agony. I ended up having to do a lot of traction, and it finally helped. And I met a holistic healer guy who was really good at doing Chinese medicine and massage, and he helped align it and get it back in. I did go to like regular chiropractors a little bit, and it helped, but it would never go away. This guy finally got me cured, but it did take almost a year.
Yeah.
That sucked.
My wife actually herniated a disc in her back and was just in constant pain for ages. It was just a terrible period, and she'd had 2. What is it where they give you the injection in your spine?
Cortisone.
No, it was like
the blocker.
like they give it to women when they're having a baby.
Epidural.
She had 2 epidurals. Didn't barely touch the thing, and was going to chiropractic. Well, our chiropractor also did acupuncture, and after 2 acupuncture sessions, pain went away. It's been gone. So she actually she has it marked on her calendar the day that she was pain free from that, because it was such a terrible thing, and it was actually just a couple weeks ago that anniversary of being pain free came through. So that was one, and then another one, Gunshot.
Yeah.
You got shot.
Jesse Hilger, are you out there? Yes, I was shot.
Jesse is our buddy, by the way.
he's our
Before
buddy.
this sounds
No, wait a
bad.
minute. I gotta say, I always tell people this. I was shot by a cop, and I wasn't even running. So he was a police officer, a firearms instructor to boot. But there was an accident that happened, and the story goes like this. We were up by Inman, Nebraska, and we were gonna go goose hunting, and we were gonna go check out this watered area where the geese were, and so. As we're heading there, Jesse goes, "Hey, I know this long tree line that's just filled with cottontails, rabbits, and we like going rabbit hunting when it was deep in the winter and if the bunnies are out and it's easy to find in the snow. It's fun to do. We head shoot them where they live." So we're walking, and sure enough, now I'm using a 22 mag that he had. It was his rifle. He let me use it, and he was using a 22 Hornet, and Jesse loads all of his own shells. He had a Teflon tip shell on his 22 Hornet, and the ground was frozen, not fully snow covered, and there were some patches of snow. But we're going through, blah blah. We were doing it really safe. One person was slightly ahead and the other was in. It's a real thick tree line, but you just walk slowly. When we'd get something, you'd just go stop, shoot. You'd go get the game, or you'd say miss, and you'd get back in line, and then you'd keep walking. So we were doing it really safely. And then we got to the end of the draw, and this is how the universe works. Got to the end of the draw, and all of a sudden I felt like I did not want to be in there. I could feel the energy just not right. I won't forget that. And we turned around, we changed positions, and he's on the inside of this tree line, and I'm a little more to the outside. So at times he couldn't see where I was. But we tried to keep the same distance from each other. And so I shot, but my game was outside the tree line. I go, stop, I shot, and I went outside the tree line, and I walked up this ditch, and I picked up the game, and as I turned around to walk back down the ditch, I hear him go, stop. And so I stopped, and he shot, and I could actually see out of the corner of my eye this chunk of whatever, like a bug flying out of the woods, hit me in my rib cage, in my lower left quadrant. And it's like getting punched really hard. And all the air left my lungs, just, and I'm spinning around to one knee, and a voice in my head told me, don't worry, it's not your time to go yet. And so I tried to remain calm. And I lifted up my shirts and stuff, and there was just a little flap of skin by a rib that was open. So, and Jesse's freaking, of course, he ran over and he's looking at, he's a police officer. He knew what to do, emergency action. He was getting on the phone. But our best hope was that, maybe it just glanced me, and ricocheted again, or, bit me and went off my rib. And then it was about 9-10 minutes later, I started going into shock, where you feel all the heat leaving your body, right to where your center of you are, where your belly button is. You just feel your heat leaving you, and you become cold inside. And I started like shivering, but yet you're hot. I'm trying to and I'm going into shock. And Jesse's flying down the road. He's doing well over 100 miles an hour, talking on the phone to the hospital, telling me, bringing me in, and we're about 20 miles away. So I was, from the time I was shot, by the time I got into the hospital room, it was almost probably 30, 40 minutes maybe, something to that effect. So another thing I learned when you get in the emergency situation like that, I could have removed my clothes for them if they just would have asked, but they cut everything off of you. They whip out scissors and they destroy all of your clothing from, you're down to nothing. I mean nothing. Your underwear, everything's just cut right off of you. I felt like a fish about ready to be filleted. And I was, actually. Luckily, I had a doctor in the small town of O'Neill who had just moved there, and he was actually a surgeon from New York City, and he had gunshot wounds. He was he was a very good surgeon, and it was nothing new to him to work on a gunshot room. And this hospital had just bought a rib spreader, and I was the first patient to that to happen to. Yeah. Otherwise, he said all they could have done was just go into the area, and I would have died. Because what happened is the bullet went, 2/3 of the bullet went in me and then split off again. But the one larger chunk perforated some of my intestine, but missed my lungs and went into my pancreas and then into my spleen. So it was like 5 millimeters from my spinal cord. So there's no way they could have got it. They had to open me completely up to get in there. I lost 40% of my pancreas. I don't have a spleen. I don't know if that's important, but I don't have a spleen. And it took me quite a while to recover from that, over a year. Once again, I went to Chinese medicine. This person I know, he really helped me get my body with the proper nutrients to get it running again. And I still had drain bags and tubes hanging on me, but they let me go home because my wife agreed to change them. Otherwise, I'd have spent like a month in the hospital. But I went back to work after about 2 weeks. I got pancreatitis from it too. That was very painful. But I went back to work with these drain bags. I'd work half hour, 30 minutes, sit down and rest. And those finally, I got out of those and healed. And he really, the transition was pretty easy. I was amazed how less painful it was. I was in more pain laying around thinking about it than I was when I finally had to get up and do things. You have to go real slow. You're stiff, you're sore. But I'm not a firm believer in just lay around and fret about it. The more you get up and use it, the better it gets.
Was it a fragment? So he hit something?
Teflon. It hit a rabbit's head.
Oh, shit. And bounced back.
I got bunny blood in me, man.
You could not recreate that shot.
No.
If you try it.
It did like a total 90-degree bing, bing. Yeah.
So it was a ricochet.
Holy off shit. The ground, through the rabbit's head, into frozen ground, and then it came up and bit me.
And just for people listening, a lot of people think a 22 is nothing, but 22 can kill you.
The 22 Hornet is a larger caliber of it. It's like one size under what you'd find in an M16 round.
Oh, okay.
And plus, you have the Teflon tip, that's made to penetrate.
Okay. So
not
it wasn't
like
just
lead
a
would
tiny
soften.
little 22.
The Teflon shatters apart like a. Okay, so yeah, we were wrong. We were wrong by using too high-powered rifles for what we were doing. Gotcha. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the stupidity of the end of it. But I did
Yeah,
not
but-
shoot myself.
How many people are actually out there doing that with that? A lot.
Yeah, probably.
Because you see something else that needs killing out there, and especially like to explain a little bit about Jesse. Jesse's family are all farmers. This kid grew up on a farm. He's been hunting since he could probably walk, knowing that family.
Yeah.
They actually, before he probably held a gun, they probably had him pushing fields, pushing pheasants out and deer out for the rest of the family. And they would hunt and then they would eat everything. I brought my parent when my dad was alive. We went up to O'Neill once, and Jesse's family put on this big meal, and my mom and dad are savaging this meat, and my mom's like, "This is delicious chicken." And Jesse's mom looks and she goes, "Oh, honey, that's not chicken. That's snapping turtleneck." Like they would eat every fucking thing. Yeah. So that would be their food for the year. So the guy is a very experienced hunter. Yeah. Plus, he's a firearms instructor. Competes now too in shooting competitions all over. But a freaky.
And I'm the only person he shot. Anyway, it's fun to tease him about it once in a while, but I'm sure it's an issue with him.
Yeah.
Shot my
Shooting
friend.
your buddy? Oh,
Yeah.
shit, yeah.
Shooting your buddy.
Yeah.
So then, I guess more recently now, Big C, cancer.
Did, yeah. I should say. I'm not 100% positive that it is gone, but yep, I have been diagnosed. It's happened at the end of June due to finding kind of large lumps in my neck that were increasing at a pretty fast rate. Squamosal is the name of it. What was found? It was in my lymph nodes around my neck, and they found cancers in my lungs. They were diagnosed as lung cancer, and also in the lymph nodes on my lungs. And that is very scary. I definitely, when you first find out you have cancer, I don't know why, but my mind, of course, goes to, okay, oh God, this is the way I'm going to leave this earth now. And for a few days, it is that way. And then I started just doing research and learning things and listening to people and calming down and knowing, okay, this can be beat. This is not as bad as I'm thinking it is. But you have your, we'll call Western or clinical medicine that's going on, where you have specialists. Like, I've been diagnosed with cancer, and I bet I've seen 8 different doctors. Just by a biopsy doctor, and one for the neck, a biopsy for the lungs. I've seen specialists who went through my throat and nasal passages. I have an oncologist. I had my family doctor. It's like you see all these people, and everybody is just specialized in one thing, and nobody's looking at the body as a whole. Yeah, where is the cause and effect at? And the body is incredible defense systems in it. And the more I've learned about Chinese medicine is they're just trying to enhance what our body already does. They just try to activate it and get it focused what it's supposed to be doing. And just because you've got gout in your foot, you know what? It could be something wrong with your ulcers in your stomach. But what are they going to do about your foot? They're going to throw things at it to make your foot better and make you feel better and take care of your pain and management. But it's actually, there's something going on in your stomach. And I'm totally fascinated by it now. I've been worked on. The lumps in my neck have gone way down. Changing your diet. If anybody out there is listening and you find out you get cancer, the first thing you got to do is find out about diet. Diet. Cancer loves sugar. You got to get rid of sugar out of your life. You got to turn your body into some type of alkaline and give it an atmosphere where it doesn't want to be, where it doesn't want to thrive and grow. I don't know a lot about all cancers for sure, but I did try and find out a lot about what I have. And they're kind of call anything that is lumps that they don't understand cancerous, just because there's tissue growing into it. What I have found is some of this cancer that's out there is actually from humans, us having parasites in us, and small worms or parasites or I want to say funguses, but microorganisms in there that are thriving and growing, and so your lymph system says that there's a foreigner in there or something, so the lymph system sends these cells out and encapsulates it and keeps it and says, nope, you're not going anywhere. But sometimes they keep growing and the cells keep growing, but whatnot, it does have to be controlled. But that's what the lymph system is trying to do, to stop it from going anywhere else. And they're having incredible results with people using like dog wormer and curing different types of tumors and things, that it breaks these tumors up. There's actually sometimes parasites that are causing eggs or doing this. Now mine was asbestos. They said it's been in my body for at least 12 years or better. And for that long, I've got these little sores on my arm. They seem to be getting a lot better here these last few days. I've had these for a long time. Seen an acne specialist, this, that. They want to put creams and things on it. But what it seems to be is that was the way that my lymph system is pushing the asbestos out of my body, is through my skin. So it seems like...
Kurt, you probably tell people too, you've been a painter your whole life around varnishes. And
well, I did construction most of my life. So.
Yeah.
And back in the 80s and 90s, and nope, we didn't protect ourselves against asbestos, being up in ceilings and whatnot. That kind of came later. But yeah, it was my own fault, kind of my trades. And that's how that happened. But I'm really looking forward to going back to the hospital if they'll let me. My doctor said he would help me through this, whether I chose treatment through him or not. They're going to tell me I'm cancer-free.
So have you rejected all the Western medicine stuff?
I did. Outside of
Did they say what they were going to do, like targeted radiation? Or what was the plan?
I cringed when they told me. So after all the tests were finally done, the oncologist calls me in and tells me exactly that I do have the same cancer in my lymph nodes that's in my neck. But there's nothing in my lungs anymore, or they can't find. What's in my lungs, he said.
The stuff that they saw before is now gone.
He said it was there, but it's not cancerous. So whatever that means. So yeah, where it was, the PET scan said it was cancer.
And this is after you receiving
treatment.
Traditional treatment.
Yeah, I didn't stop treatment. Chinese medicine treatment. I did not stop that type of treatment since the day I learned about cancer. So, which includes a lot. I mean, cupping, massage. I did aromatherapy. Energy transference. In other words, this gentleman that I see actually has a gift that he can heal and he can feel and move energy. He uses moxie sticks. He did ways of enhancing and getting my lymphatic system to run at a heightened
So
ability.
How often do you do those treatments?
A couple times I went twice a week, and he last I saw him was a week ago, and he said, well, if you want to come back in 5 weeks, because I said I got it. And I'm like, are you sure? He goes, proof is in the pudding. And my neck, these lumps in my neck have gone way down. I mean, there's just like hardly anything there anymore from what there was. I feel a lot better, but also during that time through my treatments, it was almost like going through chemo where I felt terrible. There were some days after he'd work on me, I couldn't even go to work. I was in bed. My energy level was wiped. I was going to the bathroom constantly. I just wanted to sleep. It was so it did take its toll on my body, but I didn't have my oncologist, what they wanted to do was, he believed by putting a porthole in my shoulder and then running the chemo, he was going to try and shrink these lymph nodes, which now all of a sudden is down to just 2 in my neck above my collar line and 1 by my heart and 1 on the lung, but nothing in my lungs or my throat or anything. So they're going to use chemo until they can get them to a smaller size and then finish up with radiation. And the reason he wanted to do that, because he said if he has to and they don't go down, he would have to radiate me from my neck down to my lower lungs, which would burn my trachea and my esophagus, and especially the esophagus. I wouldn't be able to eat. That he'd have to put a drain feeding tube into my stomach, and I'd have to be fed that way, kind of intravenously, for every 3 weeks for 6 months. And when they left the room, I was about ready to cry. I was like, "Oh my God, I cannot let this happen to my body. There's just no way. This is going to kill me." I said, "This is going to kill me." I've had some heart issues for about 5 years, and I was an AFib and AFlutter. And going through a cardiologist here in Omaha, Dr. Lataha, wonderful cardiologist at Methodist, he was able to get me just to a slight kind of flutter. And for a while, I didn't have anything. And you want to hear another funny story? It wasn't funny at the time. So I'm feeling okay, and I'm kind of over that. I haven't had any heart medicine. My heart was running just fine, and I had 2 fighters down in Oklahoma. We're in Muskogee, Oklahoma, And these guys they did their weigh-ins. They were gonna fight the next night. We got up that Saturday, and they were gonna fight that night. And they wanted to hit the pads. And I'm like, I said, okay, but just lightly, guys, just doing technique. And they're like, okay. So the one guy warmed up 20 minutes, so he did great. The other guy gets in there, and the first thing, he just starts blasting these pads. I got a belly pad on and thigh pads on, and I'm holding him. And I was calling the shots out, and he just added on his own thing and reached up and grabbed me and jumped up, totally missed the belly pad, and threw a knee into my groin. I didn't have a cup on. Just drops me. I knew it was bad. I've been hitting the groin a lot, but I'm not like that. I knew it was wrong. It was way bad. And sure enough, ruptured. I lost 2/3 of, or over a third of one of my testicles through surgery. But I finished the fights that night. I couldn't climb over the ropes. I rolled underneath. I finished cornering for the two guys. And I mean, my breathing was like, I'd take a breath in and my next breath would be about a half a breath. So it'd be like, that's how I did that the whole night, right? And I knew I had to drive home the next day. So I'm like, well, I can't pound a bunch of alcohol, and that's not really going to help much anyway. But of course, I did have a few beers to kind of relax myself. But the next morning, man, ice bag, and I had a little pillow underneath me and put ice on top of me, and I had to drive 8 hours home like that in that car. That was miserable. So I get home. That was a Sunday. 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, I wake my wife up and say, we're going to the hospital right now. I can't take this anymore. I couldn't even sleep that night. I was in so much pain. And I go in, and I walked in, and they take me in for, and you tell them, I was kneed in the groin. I had to explain that I wasn't an attack in a fight. It was it was part of my occupation, whatever. Well, they take me in and they do an ultrasound and on the damaged area, and the lady comes back and she does it 4 times, this ultrasound on me, and I'm like, what's going on?
She's like, I like your balls.
She comes back, and there's like another nurse with her too. And they're like, no, get up. And they wouldn't let me walk, I had to lay down, and they like carted me off. And I was in surgery within like 2 hours later. And everybody in the emergency room that was working there had to come meet the guy with the crushed scrotum. It was like, everybody was like, hey, you got to see this guy's ultrasound. Come here. Here, I just sent you a copy of it. Whatever, it was funny. But they're all coming in and going, wow, we can't believe. They couldn't believe that I lasted over 72 hours in the condition I was, and I didn't go into the hospital. And go in the emergency room. I don't know. I just,
Fucking tough as nails. That's why.
Well, that put my heart out of sync. That's another story. Yeah. So the pain of that put me into flutter again. And so I thought, man, what is the deal? How come every time, if I get hurt bad, and every time am I gonna have to, or like I went to flutter once because my mom passed away, right? It's something emotional. I get hurt. Am I gonna keep doing this? And yeah, my cardiologist, like, because this was the 9th time he wanted to do another procedure. I had 5 cardiac conversions and 3 what they call an ablation, where they actually go in and cauterize different areas of the heart to keep it from fluttering. I didn't want to do another one at all, and he didn't want to do another one on me either. So I kind of released myself from him, and I went right to Chinese medicine again. And sure enough, they have given me a tincture. I'm using, I think it's called licorice, is another herb that helps. That helps with the monitor of and I'm fine. I feel great. I'm running again, and well, before this cancer thing was going, I was hitting bags again, sparring. I feel really good. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with what's going on. So if I get this cancer over with and it's gone, I'm ready again. I'll be 54 years out, hitting it hard again. There you go.
So, well, I have to tell you this. Yeah. This is his personality. So when I found out, somebody's like, hey, man, I just heard Kurt has cancer. And I was like, no fucking way. Like, come on. Like, is this guy going to get a break? So I text him, or I messaged him, and I was like, hey, buddy, you doing okay? Waiting for him to go, well, I got cancer or whatever, and all he responds back was, well, buddy, I guess life is just seeing what I can take. And I was like, yeah, all right. He's got it compartmentalized already. Like, it's just another fight to him. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah, more power to you, man.
Thanks,
man.
Cheers.
That's kind of what I was going to ask. We're running out of time, but I just wanted to see, like, with all this martial arts training and then obviously struggles outside and we talked about some really big struggles. I'm sure there were, smaller struggles along the way. Would you say, training martial arts has kind of helped cope with those, or, make the struggle more palatable?
I think I've always had the personality, but martial arts has given me the structure and the knowledge to follow different paths to a healthier lifestyle. Yeah, and to not just healthier lifestyle, but just a better way of life. Yeah, not just even physically, but just emotionally, mentally, relationship-wise. Yeah, definitely. I grew up in a very kind of prejudiced family. There was ethnic jokes. It was just common, So when I grew up, it was just commonplace for my mouth to run like that. But it took martial arts to realize, to me, that it just doesn't matter the color of your skin, your sex, your religion. I mean, it taught me not to be, prejudiced at all against anybody, against whatever their beliefs are, accept everybody as a whole. So that's one of my favorite things that I've learned about martial arts. It's changed my life.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Really powerful. Well, yeah, we've gone over time a little bit. I'm okay with that. Any kind of final thoughts to wrap this up?
I just want to thank you guys for having me. Mick and I have a long past. We could do many hours of talking about the stories that this guy, him and I did. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Some we probably shouldn't tell, though.
Yeah, some of them we shouldn't tell.
we have kids now.
Yeah.
But it was an exciting life. If you are spending your time sitting around playing games or living a life of watching other people live life, get up off the fucking couch. We got up off the couch. We did stuff. We trained hard. We worked hard. We even played together. We out and did things together. When we got families, we started doing things with that together. When we bonded through martial arts. Get up off that couch. Get out and do stuff. The life is out. The world is out there. There's no way I could have seen and did what I did. I might have always been a martial artist, but never have seen the world like I did if it hadn't been for Mick Doyle. So definitely want to thank him.
Both ways. I mean, I wouldn't have the experiences, these stories and stuff. I mean, I met a lot of cool people through martial arts, but when you have someone like him who is your training partner. And like we would switch roles as each other's coach. If he had to fight, I'm his coach. If I had to fight, he's my coach.
You had to get your hands unwrapped real fast and get over in corner.
Over there. I mean, we've lived many lives.
Yeah.
The more than probably most people will ever get to do in a lifetime. We've been fortunate enough to, through martial arts, has given us an opportunity to have a lot of cool adventures and
definitely.
It makes you grow. And adversity too. Going through adversity together and he's probably had a lot worse than I ever have had. It's funny that we kind of both share the whole cancer thing, because I lost my dad to it, my mom. In fact, my mom was just here and I found out while she was here. And she's beat lung cancer twice. And she's like, well, I know that boy. He's strong enough to beat it. And I said, do you mind if I tell him that? We were at the zoo that day when cool. I messaged you. And I was like, hey, man. I go, my mom just wanted me to let you know that you can beat this. And she's like, are you talking to him right now? And I said, I'm just texting him. And she goes, here, send him a picture. And she's in her wheelchair. And she gives him like a thumbs up, like, another
so
cancer survivor. So it's pretty cool. But you bond when you do stuff like this together, and
sure do.
We're not done doing it yet.
Awesome.
We saw the world, baby. We were the pioneers for a lot of things that went on in this Omaha, Nebraska area for sure. You guys wouldn't have what you had if it wasn't for guys like us.
And we appreciate it. So. Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and let you get going. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming in. Looking forward to letting people hear this. I think they'll take a lot from it.
Yeah, for sure.